Hey girl, cacti already talk. And we're live. It is Tuesday, the third day of June, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. And, folks, the Ukrainians this morning blew up the supports underwater of the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. There's a really badass video of it released by the SBU. You can see the water going, and I think that is a harbinger of a great day when you wake up to news. It's not even in English yet, but your Ukrainian friends are already texting you about it, and that's kind of awesome. And you kind of roll over in bed and it's like, oh, they got the Kerch Bridge again. But here's the thing. The Kerch Bridge is still standing. The support structures are severely damaged. It's not clear to me how usable it is. Finish the job. I want to see the thing crumble into the sea, guys. Come on. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. The Kerch Bridge is severely damaged. It's going to be a great frickin' day. And the cactus has something to say to you all.
We're watching Dog Shirt TV, an effing revolution in morning television.
You are watching Dog Shirt TV. It is a goddamn revolution in morning television. And the snowman has something to say to you as well. There it is. One of the revolutionary features, which is very unusual for morning television, is to have completely mute co-hosts like the snowman. And one of the cool things about completely mute co-hosts is that you can say that they're going to say something and just hold them up, and you know you can infer. It's like reader response theory. You
John
can
Hawkinson suggests that he should have captions. I think that's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea too.
Who's going
Uh,
to add those in post-production? Is it
I think we're gonna in the future we will I know how to do this, and in the future we will do it live. Another one of the revolutionary features is that when the Ukrainians blow up the Kerch Bridge, we can attribute the specific action to Nastia, and we can impute all of the SBU's prowess to one of our co-hosts. So, Nastia, you had an early morning this morning
Yeah.
down there with your scuba suit.
Right. Yes. Yes. I just came back from Crimea a few hours ago. Um, but yeah, how bad is the noise situation? I'm at a restaurant and people are being excited around me, and I'm worried that you
It's
can
kind of
hear their
awesome.
excitement.
It's
Okay.
fine.
I think
Just
everyone
keep,
is just happy about the SB situation.
yeah, it's a good day.
Yes.
So look,
Yeah.
all of which is
The
a
SBU
long
is
way
on
of,
a roll.
yeah, the SBU is on a roll. All of which is a just a long-winded way of saying that while we are not allowed to have fun anymore, we are allowed to make sure that the Russians really aren't allowed to have fun anymore. And that's a kind of fun in and of itself. We are also allowed to have JVL join us as our guest today, though he hasn't shown up yet. And I'm beginning to wonder if he may have forgotten. So while Holly says something, I'm going to text him.
Yeah, so I was actually going to comment on the SBU. Very impressive as an intel service. I will say that in the business of intelligence, having the moral high ground is a tremendous asset. And that's one of the reasons why that's one of the many things that the Trump administration is squandering on behalf of the US. But if you look at the history of espionage, countries that have a inspiring, noble cause do much, much better in
And
the
what,
espionage game.
like in all realpolitik, putting on your intelligence community long-serving officer hat, why is that? Is it because their people are more motivated? Is it because they attract agents more easily?
I think so. It's two.
What's the benefit?
Yeah, so it's on two fronts. So Intel services are always trying to penetrate each other and flip people on the inside. So when you have a noble cause that the people, the Intel officers are committed to, and in a free society, that's a big selling point. It's harder to flip people on the inside. There's an ideological component to it. Not that it can't happen. Obviously, you can account for sociopaths. And then also in recruitment as well. When you have a noble cause, it's much easier to recruit. And I mean, World War II is like the ultimate example. The British flipped every single Nazi agent, like every single one. The Nazis' intelligence game was like a joke. Like it was
On the other hand, the Soviets flipped the senior British. So,
yeah, but again, you can't count for that's why a sociopath is so dangerous, So
right,
anyway,
but
enough about that. JVL, this is like I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. I told my husband, I'm like, guess who's coming on the show tomorrow? JVL. And he said, no, he's not going to come. And I said, he is going to come.
And here he is.
Yeah.
Hi, friends. Sorry I'm late.
Hello, JVL. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. Everything in the world is fabulous.
Well, we were just talking about the good news this morning. Did you know that the SBU blew up the Kirsch Bridge this morning, and the news just broke?
Actually, twice.
I did not.
We blew it up again a few minutes ago. There was a second round of explosions. Yeah,
Ah.
Well, that's
we're
good.
really keeping it coming.
Yeah, so look, everything sucks at home, everything sucks in the world, except that we're all team SBU. We're hitting Russian air bases in Siberia. We're blowing up the supports for the Kerch Bridge. We're going to bury that motherfucker in the sea. And it's all to make you feel better, John, and to make so that the next time you and Sarah do the secret podcast, you won't be able to say everything sucks.
Yeah, it's great. Good 36 hours in Ukraine. I find it a little hard to get like super excited about that because like Ukrainian people are still dying every day. And so it's I'm sorry, I'm being a little too dour here, but like I see the good news. I'm like it's great, but this country it's just the entirety of that situation is so horrific that I find it hard to take the attaboys, which is bad. This is defeatist thinking on my part. I get it.
You will get a lot of the good vibes.
So Nastia is joining us from Kiev. She's sitting in a lovely restaurant where lots of Ukrainians are wandering in and out, not being killed. And so I just want to say, enjoy the good stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna gather you rosebuds, right?
This is almost entirely possible because of you guys and your patriots, and Kyiv specifically. Like the reason why Kyiv looks like just another European city is the patriots.
Don't remind Americans of that, because if it starts getting around MAGA circles, like if Jonathan were to, say on the next level tomorrow, life is relatively normal in Kyiv because of American patriots, it would get back to the bad guys, and Pete Hegseth would cut off the patriots like that. So shh.
Yeah. What does it say about America that when we do good stuff, we gotta sort of hide it? The same thing with like the Biden program of getting Afghans out of getting our Afghan allies out of Afghanistan after the pullout. From what I understand, the Biden administration actually was fairly successful in doing that, but they couldn't talk about it ever because talking about it would have prompted the Taliban to crack down when the Taliban was basically turning a blind eye to a lot of this stuff. And like, what? The weirdness of the world where you've got to like hide the lights under bushels and everything's it's all bad. Anastasiia, I'm so glad to see you, and my prayers are with you and your country.
Thank you.
So
let's segue to you said that you didn't have an agenda, Ben. Do you have an agenda?
Well, I always have a list of things to talk to Jonathan about, but if you've written it out and have a specific agenda, let's start with your first item and then we'll go to my first item and we'll do it that way.
Well, first of all, I was just going to bring into our conversation here the conversation that JVL and Sarah have on the regular about whether humanity sucks. And the argument, if for those that don't listen to you guys on the regular, Sarah is the optimist that humanity and Americans in particular can be redeemed and that we can right the ship. And JVL is the negative Nelly who says that Americans suck and there's no hope because Americans suck so bad. And I have to say that I am, you can elaborate on that, JV. I'm temperamentally and based on my personal history, Team JVL all the way. But I have to say, I aspire to be Sarah, and I'm glad that there are Sarahs in the world because that's our only hope. But JVL, please elaborate on your particular position.
I mean, for those who don't, I assume most of the people watching this don't follow like my private conversations with Sarah Longwell, and that's perfectly fine, no judgments.
I think you'd be surprised actually at the percentage of overlap between Bulwark and us.
I could see one. I could see I imagine like many Bulwark people watch you guys. I'm not sure how many of your guys watch Bulwark people, if that makes sense. But I'm grateful if that is the case. I'm basically where Holly is. Like I don't want to believe the worst about people. Although, like the human condition and original sin are what they are, and people are what they are, and to a large degree, society and civilization exists to correct for the inherent badness of mankind. But on the other hand, like, what good does it do to be me? And when all progress in the world comes from the people who are the optimists, right? And because they're wrong 99 times, and then the one time they're right, they move the world forward. So, I guess the world needs people like me, negative Nellies, but but the world is made better by the people who are optimistic, like Sarah. That's why Sarah is the best of us, and I am not.
So I just want to say that I think that the reason this bit works so well is that you guys together represent the shit that's going on in everybody's two sides of their brain, and one side, which is let's be honest about where this idea comes from, is the people whose worldview is really rooted in Christianity, where humanity is fallen, there's original sin, right? And so Holly,
but also redemption. See that the Christianity, it's a duality, I think, that lends itself to either side.
Yeah, but the idea that the natural state is bad is a very Christian idea.
Super Catholic.
It's super Catholic.
Super Catholic.
And that you have to have these structures to, whether it's the church or the state or society. On the other side of the ledger, is you know, it's ironic to me that Sarah is the avatar of this because we think of this as more Hegelian or Marxist, the idea that humanity is perfectible, right? We're moving ineluctably towards something better, and it's just the march of history. And, liberals really believe this, or progressives, liberals in that
Yeah.
sense, really believe that. That's where the word progressive comes from. And I think the idea that you guys are having this argument in sometimes joking modern political terms, but the argument is super, super old, and it's the foundation of a lot of this question is a foundation of a lot of modern political theory.
Yeah, I mean, when you drill all the way down, Sarah is really like, and her position is like that of the Enlightenment. It
Right.
predates even Marx and Hegel, and I,
Well,
part of
except
this is
no, no,
also that
no.
I want to
Be
break her.
careful with that because
So
the Enlightenment liberalism starts with Hobbes, right? Who has this very JVL view of
right,
right the state of man.
yeah,
And the founders too were quite realistic. Sarah's realistic, I feel like, but my thing is actually intellectually I actually believe I am a little bit of a Sarah. I mean, it's hard to argue if you look at the long sweep of history that things have not gotten drastically better, both materially but also morally, just how people treat each other. We're not burning witches at the stake anymore or things like that. It's hard to argue with that. So I really do believe that, and I also believe that human beings are I believe in her kind of wolf theory that there's, I think to me, my idea of sinful nature, which is the Christian idea, is like kind of the biological, instinct for self-preservation. And then the higher nature is like, we're more than just our biology, and we have the capacity to rise above that, unlike most animals. My particular pessimism is with the American people, rather than humanity writ large. And then I'm with JVL like all the way. And it's with my people, the
I don't know.
people.
The Polish people don't look so great this morning. The some of the shit that we're dealing with is going on all
Should I
over the
bring up the
place.
Russian people? I don't know, just for the sake of it.
yeah,
If we're looking for people to shit about.
The thing about that galls me about the American people is that these people have everything. Like I grew up in a developing country with under a dictator, like, and then you come to America, it's like these people have everything. These people have everything. They have choice. They have too many choices.
Yeah, but
They have all the goods that they want. They have like opportunity galore. They have democracy. Like they choose their own government. Like Americans have like fucking everything. And they're just like, oh, we'll just buy a new one at Walmart if it breaks. And that drives me, that makes
Well, I mean, that's going to get more expensive now because, tariffs.
yeah. I just want to step back for a second, to put a point on something you just said, Holly, about the long sweep. Like, in the long, long run, meaning like 10,000 years, sure, the trend goes upwards. But when you zoom down to the scope of any individual's life, or to like a generation or two generations, like 20 to 40 years, when you zoom in that much over the course of human history, there is enough volatility that it is not clear to like an individual's life experience that things are always getting better.
it's a very
within the scope
depressing
of like,
thought.
yeah, right. I mean, from the worm's eye view of this, sometimes things are getting better and sometimes they aren't.
Also, the worm's eye view is an interesting metaphor because things can be getting a lot better, but if you happen to be the worm who gets snatched by the bird
Yeah.
and eaten, you don't see that progress.
Yeah.
All right, JVL, I want to ask you about a matter about which there has definitely been progress, and you have been central to it, which is to say, about almost 8 years ago today, 7, 8 years ago, I had a conversation with Sarah Longwell, who was then in the process of taking the entire Never Trump movement on her back and starting to trudge down the street. And she was thinking about, like, they needed an organ for the discussion. And she had this idea that she was going to kind of recreate the Drudge Report, only instead of Matt Drudge, they would have links to serious material, but it would be like a locus of discussion. And she hired the young Ben Parker to run it, and I kind of consulted with her about how to do this, though I was a little bit skeptical of it because there were a lot of Drudge Reports in the world, and only one of them was the Drudge Report, and it seemed a little passé. And then the Weekly Standard, for which you were one of the senior editors, imploded and was vandalized by its ownership. And overnight, she hires you guys all, and the modern Bulwark is born. And it is this crazy thing, if you think about it in terms of a media organization, which is it is a media organization that's doing serious work, serious writing, and growing not merely on fumes, but on the basis of actual revenues and readership. And you have spent the last 7, 8 years running it, at least running it editorially. And I want you to talk about the experience of growing a media organization in an environment in which everybody else except the Atlantic is contracting.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be the same conversation we just had, because this is a case of Sarah saying, like, hey, we can do this. How would we do it? And then me saying, no, it can't be done. But if we were going to try to do it, this is what we would do.
But
this is literally half the conversations we got.
Hang on a second. I want to pause, because this is not an example of a dark view of human nature versus, this is a view of somebody who knows something about the media environment, aka Jonathan Last, versus somebody who, and I say this with love, I really love Sarah Longwell, is a neophyte. At 8 years ago, was a total neophyte in the media business, knew nothing about it. And John, you were right and she was wrong, and yet she was right and you were wrong.
Yeah.
And so
that's such a Ben Wittes explanation of what happened. It's exactly how Ben always puts things.
So here's how it went. So Sarah is, the reason I got hooked up with her is because I was trying to find jobs for the people who worked for me. So I was at the Standard. I ran digital operations over there. I'm a builder by nature, not really a maintainer. I started the Standard's first website back when people were starting websites, and ran digital for a while. Then I stopped and just became like a writer and a reporter. And then I came back and ran digital when we ran into problems and needed to rescue it again. So I had a team of about 12 people. It was clear to me that the Standard was going to be shut down. And so I spent the last 3 months of the Standard trying to find jobs for everybody on my team. And
what was the Standard's thing? Sorry, Ben, I said I'm going to ask I'm not American dumb questions. Like, what did the Standard do? What was the coverage or the angle or the focus?
So it was a weekly political magazine, but like an actual print magazine that we mailed out to people. This is a thing we did back in the past when everything was in black and white, Anastasiia. And we, so again, it started in 95, I think it started in 1995. And then in like 2001, they decided, oh, we need a website. Again, we didn't have a website.
But
and
just Nastia, for your benefit, it was a conservative magazine, a sort of conservative answer to the New Republic, and it was highly, highly associated with the neoconservative movement.
Yes. So anyway, I went to Sarah saying, like, hey, you don't know me, but we have mutual friends, and they said I should talk to you. I'm trying to find jobs. Can you help me find jobs for people? And she basically was willing to hire 2 or 3 of my people over to the firm that she was working at, just doing like lobbying and media stuff. And she was gonna, not for journalism, but she was gonna find other stuff for them to do there. And then she said to me, I got this thing, and I was thinking we could turn it into like a real media organization, the Bulwark. And I was like, I mean, you could try to do that, but unless you have a donor, it's not going to work. The economics of media don't really work anymore. And she said, oh, no, it'll be fine. I can find donors. Don't worry. What do we do? And so I said, okay, well, I can consult and help you build the thing. You need a newsletter, you need a podcast, you need a website. These are how you build those 3 things. Those are the 3 pillars that you start a digital operation on. And she was like, well, will you do this and run this? And at this point, it was Sarah, Bill, Charlie Sykes, and then the 3 other people of mine that she had hired. So like Andrew Egger, Rachel Larimore, Hannah Yost, I think. And I was like, no, I'll help you set this up, but I'm not going to do this because I'm done with media. I'm going to go work for tech. I'm going to go work at Apple News or Facebook or something. And so it was. Did you guys ever read The Princess Bride? Yeah. So when Wesley is kidnapped by the Dread Pirate Roberts, at the end of every day, the Dread Pirate Robert says to him, "Good night, Wesley. I'll probably kill you in the morning." That was what I was like. Good night, Sarah. I'm probably leaving in the morning. I'm probably going to go take my tech job next. And then like she got her hooks into me, and the truth is that I just fell in love with Sarah Longwell, and I am so devoted to her. I would take a bullet for that woman. She is, for serious, the best among us. And I eventually decided to like give my whole heart to the project, and I was like, fine, I'm not going to Apple. Like I even got the job offer at Apple. I was super excited. It was going to be great. And I was just like, no, I'm going to ride or die with this woman because she's amazing. And I believe in her. And so we stayed, and we were a nonprofit, and we were, she was out there raising the money to keep everything going. And the media landscape shifted with Substack, and Substack created a vehicle for small publications to become subscription supported in ways that only used to exist if you were very large. And so you could do direct mail and advertising and that sort of stuff, because maintaining a subscription file is like a really big operation. And Substack basically commoditized that and made it accessible to people of any scale. And so my second really genius idea was we need to go over to Substack and see if we can support ourselves. And we did that thinking that it would take the donor lift off of Sarah's plate, that she wouldn't have to go out and find as many donors to support us. And instead, it turned out that we were able to be profitable in like 12 months. And so we actually then had to switch from being a nonprofit to being a for-profit, because otherwise the economics and the tax laws were not going to work. And so what we've done is we've grown very, very slowly, with the idea being that we are always right at sustainability. So, we would bring in a bunch of revenue, then hire the next tranche of people and expand out like 2 people like that. Then we pause, backfill to bring more revenue in to catch up to that. And so we've never gotten out over our skis. And we're still growing, which is crazy to me. We're just at about 100,000 paid subscribers, which is stunning to me.
It's a stunning number.
Yeah, it is.
And I have to say, like, it's a community. I think that's the big draw. Like, it's not just a publication. Like, it's a community.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
I mean, literally at the level that Holly and I know each other as through the Bulwark.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
well, yeah, I guess I met you originally at that French embassy thing.
Yeah, which was the result of the French Village podcast.
Correct.
Which was a creature of the Bulwark.
That's right. That's right. That's right. It was the French Village podcast. So, yeah, and I wonder, like, I mean, as a member of the community of several years, when I discovered the Bulwark and became a member of the community, it was a lot smaller, and the feel has changed a little bit as it's gotten bigger. But I have to say, it still feels like a community, which I wondered about. Like, how do you sort of maintain that sense of community as things get so much larger?
It's hard. It requires some tending. I mean, we've been really intentional about the community building aspects of it. So, for instance, I mean, it begins with direct contact with the audience, which is like at the level of email, which is how I started. I mean, this is how you and I became friends, Holly. I think, you emailed me something and we became email buddies.
That's how Holly. It's all about stalking.
Yeah, no, I made those parodies, which I wouldn't. I mean, most podcasts are people in their community making parodies of them. Like, that's just absurd. I mean, I am very weird, but yeah.
No, it's great. But like, I have literally dozens of friends who are like now in real life friends who I just met because like they emailed me because I read something that I wrote and we just started chatting. So like being willing to like actually engage with your audience because you like them is a big part. The second part is the comments. We resisted having comments for years upon years because I've always thought that comment sections were terrible. And we've dipped our toe into them, but they are fairly heavily moderated. And they're not on everything. So we only have comments on products where the people who own the product, so the newsletter writer, takes ownership of the comment section. And so, like, the triad.
And that's a huge amount of work.
It's a fair amount of work. Yes. It gets easier once you have a strong enough sense of community that you can deputize people to police the comments themselves and to let you know if there's something bad going on. I mean, it used to be like, oh, you get 80 comments or 90 comments, and you could really do a lot with that. That was great. But now, I mean, I get a huge number of comments every time I go on Tim's show. My email just fills up with comments, and it's actually impossible to read them all. Yeah, and it's
you also don't read your email, but that's okay.
It's impossible at the level of YouTube, right? I mean, our YouTube presence is so big that it's not manageable. But at the level of Substack, it still is. And, like the next step from that is there probably is a world in which we have to like, there will probably be a tipping point at which the comments become too unwieldy to really moderate without bringing extra help. And maybe we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But the other thing is, like, I mean, I just talk about the way I manage my comment section because I think it's really good. I think anybody who's ever been in the comment section on my newsletter would say it's one of the best places on the internet, frankly. And it's because I am constantly like prodding people and reminding them of we have an ethos for the comment section, right? Everything you say should be at least two of the following: kind, necessary, or true. And the best comments are all three of those, but no comment should be made unless it's at least two of them. And, I just, people get like one or two warnings and otherwise I kick them out. And when people are like being malcontents, I tell them, you should just cancel your subscription right now. We'll refund you your money. Like, I don't want anybody around here who isn't contributing. And so this is like a problem of audience capture, which is whatever. I don't know if you guys want to talk about this. Like the economic models for journalism all have strengths and weaknesses. And the weakness of a subscriber supported organization is audience capture. And so one of the ways I try to mitigate that risk is by being not trying to retain the marginal subscribers, but actually to actively push them out. And so the people who I know will eventually be unhappy with us because they've come looking for something different and needing us to be something different in order to satisfy them, I just want them gone the first time I encounter them.
And what is the median malcontented subscriber? Is it a person who just doesn't understand that you guys aren't leftists? Or is it a person who wants to bring you back to MAGA? What's the profile of the person who's going to be upset?
The person who's going to be upset wants us to be like partisan Democrats. They want us to be one of two things. Partisan Democrats, which is to say, like, you're there to defend the team no matter what, like even when the team does something bad. Or they are progressives who want us to be really leftist. And when we aren't those things, again, I want those people to leave as fast as possible. Not because I dislike them or anything, but because I know they aren't going to be happy with the product. Right. I want them to save their money, and I don't want us to be reliant on that revenue.
Yeah, we have a similar
to make changes
problem.
And decisions.
We have a similar issue at Lawfare, which is that there are a large number, and we are, of course, on a nonprofit model, so we're not, but there's this huge bulge of readership that is essentially responding to Trump, not doesn't have a deep professional interest or previous interest in the substance of the baseline issues that we deal with. They're not cybersecurity people. They're not counterintelligence people, right? They're people who figured out that this community has something to say to this moment, right?
Yeah.
And they don't understand that, we might be enthusiasts of CIA covert operations overseas, right? We may have a different understanding of the law of armed conflict. It doesn't always mean you can't do things. Sometimes it means you can, right?
Right.
Like there's these traditional, that the national security community and the left progressive community just don't see eye to eye on, and the understanding that that the interstices between the two lobes of that Venn diagram is substantial at this point because Donald Trump poses a threat to national security, but it's not complete. And I'm an enthusiast of government surveillance authorities. That doesn't change because the left doesn't like them, and, I think if you want to counter the Russians, you need the authorities to do it. The problem is Trump isn't doing it, not that the authorities are misaligned.
Right.
All right.
Can I tell you something that might be of interest to you?
By all means. And Nastya just texted me, folks, that there may be a Russian missile attack coming. Nastya, if you need to...
missile attack in Russia, like a
strategic
very big missile attack.
Yeah, so if Nastya just vanishes, she is going to a shelter, and be safe, girl. I will say one thing while you're still here, which is for Jonathan's benefit about Nastya. If you guys need, Substack Live partners from Kiev, Nastya has a wonderful Substack there and is a great presence and can give you guys all kinds of stuff, and I will send you her contact information.
That'd be great, actually. I would love that if you'd be willing, Nastya.
Thank you, guys. Of course, I talk to Ben about everything that's happening here regularly and stuff already.
That'd be great.
Sorry, you were going to say something, Jonathan.
Yeah, just about our audience. So when we started out, I would say our audience was like 60-40, sort of 60% liberals who were disaffected with like Bernie and wanted something more centrist, about 40% never Trump Republican types. And that has shifted over the years. But the reason it has shifted is because those 40% never Republican type or never Trump types, those people are all still with us, but they have stopped identifying as Republicans at all. Like they think of themselves as Democrats now. And it's not because it isn't the case that like they went away.
This is why partisan identification in a poll is a choice, not a demographic.
Yes. And they again, it isn't the case that like, oh, well, we lost all of those readers. Those readers are still, I mean, I know this because I talk with them. It's like a longitudinal survey because we have these years-long email dialogues. It is that they've given up on the Republican Party, and
you see that even with your most senior people. I mean, I am old enough to remember the day when Bill Kristol's use of the word "we" referred to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And now when Bill says "we," he means Democrats. And, you know, that's and you see that with, with Sarah and Tim, too. They use phrases like, we, the Democratic Coalition. The Democrat is usually an adjective there, not a noun, because there's still a little residual discomfort with just calling yourself a Democrat. But, the freedom with which people identify with the broader Democratic Party project is remarkable.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Anyway, I thought that might be interesting to you guys. That's all.
It's interesting that like I don't think people outside the U.S. or outside this media like circles they realize that this is happening. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a never Trumper thing until Ben told me. However many months years ago, like this was like a recent discovery for me. There's a whole circle of people that specifically pose themselves that, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Never Trump movement is, it's as old as Trump's rise. It started in the Republican caucus during the primaries in 2016, and it meant support anybody in the primaries except Trump. And then when Trump won the primaries, it became, Never Trump meant I'll even vote for Hillary. Which was a huge step for a lot of Republicans. All right, so Holly, your turn.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I feel like the Bulwark and that sort of political space in our politics as well. It's kind of a temperament thing, and that's why I think the people that you kick out really need to go, because I feel like and I see this in religious spaces too. There are people who on various sides, they must have black and white thinking, and they just don't know. They don't know how to not fall into those cognitive patterns. And then there's people who want to not, and I think the temptation to fall into those patterns is there for all of us. But there's a lot of people who don't want to do that and want to understand the complexity and actively want to check their biases and to remain, a person of some intellectual integrity against maybe their base human nature. And and I feel like I always say the Bulwark, to put it in evangelical terms, the Bulwark is my accountability partner. Like I don't want to become a fundamentalist on the other side, either religiously or politically. I don't want to become a tribalist. I don't want to become what what I hate. And so the Bulwark, I feel like, if I'm slipping into those, the Bulwark's going to pull me back, like I became very enamored of Joe Biden. You did not help that, JBL, because you were like the number two. But
greatest living president.
Yeah, I had I actually briefed him once. I had a kind of a personal, I had a friend who worked for him. I had kind of this personal thing, and I built him up. I built the 2020 election up into this sort of mythology of like, this sort of the little boy, the bullied boy in the playground with the stutter riding in to like save and it was kind of almost a gospel myth, mythology of like the weak shall be strong, and the sort of the kind, person saves the day. And when that story started to unravel for me, I still do not like, I don't like any of this Jake Tapper discussion around, like, I just can't. But I'm like,
What Jake Tapper discussion?
but I'm like, oh, his health, and he was in decline, and there was a cover up, and Joe Biden is this evil kind of fiend. I don't like that at all, and I have an instinctive like, no. But then I know, like, hey, don't, you got to process this information. So to me, that's what it is for me. And I think people who gravitate toward, that's what they want, and the people that are not they don't understand that that's what the culture is. And if they are looking for black and white tribalist thinking, they need to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I would say it's affirmation versus conversation. I mean, the number of times that the percentage of times in which, like, I am on a podcast with Sarah and Tim and I enter the conversation with, I don't know what I think about this, what do you guys think, is about half. Like, that's about half the time. And I feel like that is one of the ethoses of the organization, is that like, not everybody is going to understand or have a settled opinion on everything, and it's okay to not have that and to have a conversation, talk. I mean, I don't know, there's like some very large percentage of the time Sarah and I start conversation on one thing and I think one thing, and then she talks, and I literally on the podcast I'm like, no, you're right, I was wrong. That's cans.
Except you're
Actually,
never.
that's one of the most delightful things about the podcast, is the degree to which you guys are thinking through issues iteratively over time, and are constantly coming back to, no, you were right about that one. I mean, the whole joke about the two shirts, the Sarah is always right and JVL are always right shirt, works because, in fact, the ethos of the actual show is exactly the opposite. It's not a kind of McLaughlin group, but it's a like, we're processing this extraordinary moment in history together over time, and we both are learning things in real time.
Yeah. I
It's
feel like
very
most of our audience.
refreshing.
I'm
Just
sorry,
want to
Natasha,
say.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say it's very refreshing. It's very rare. I feel like, I mean, Ben, I have my own things about how I perceive myself in the media, but I always feel this pressure to, like, I can't show up to a live discussion unless I know everything that Ben is about to ask me, unless I've read 15 books because I joined Doctor TV about something, And it's very refreshing to just like have really smart people be like, let's just figure it out together and like see where that goes.
Yeah. I
So
think
I
our
want to
audience has
ask
a lot
you
of that
about
too.
it's a non-Bulwark, it's a pure JVL thing.
Okay.
And it's something that you and I have in common, and that you said once, I can't remember if it was to me or on a show, or which was like, wow, that really speaks to me. And you said, there are people who write faster than I do, and there are people who write better than I do, but there's nobody who writes better faster than I do. And I think this captures something. It sounds arrogant, but it captures something very deep about the way you think about your own writing, which is your job. And you write like just an enormous amount. I mean, it's got to be like 8,000, 9,000 words a week.
It's about 7,000
Okay.
words a week. Yeah.
So, right ballpark. So I write more like 5, I think. And, you know, but it's a high volume, and you're going to be wrong a certain percentage of the time. You're going to do what I did yesterday, which is write about Operation Spiderweb, only to have the Kirsch operation happen the next morning, right? You're going to be OBE a lot. And yet you're trying to raise the level of real-time discourse in a way that is actually helps people. It's not, bomb throwing. And so talk to us about writing well fast, the well fast being one adjective or adverb rather than two.
Yeah, it's I mean it is a muscle set. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you get better at by doing it more. And I've been writing a daily newsletter. I wrote a daily newsletter at the Weekly Standard. It was much smaller, but it's funny. Before that, before I had started writing daily newsletters, I was really just doing feature writing.
Long form stuff. You had that
features, yeah.
Yeah, and you had that great icon of yourself with chomping on a giant cigar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, I'm the guy who sits here, smokes a cigar, and writes long stuff.
That sounds so good.
It was great. I loved living in that world. The economics of that don't work anymore in journalism. And it used to be. I mean, that's how the New Yorker could support. The New Yorker would have 5 or 6 writers on staff who only wrote 2 stories a year. And, each of their stories would be half a book. So they would be 30,000 word stories.
This is how Eichmann in Jerusalem was written. There are many, many important famous books that were written this way.
And the idea was the rest of the magazine could carry those journalists. And I think we were really the last small publication to do that. I mean, you had to be at the scale of the New Yorker or the Atlantic to make that work. But the Weekly Standard had 2 or 3 guys, Andy Ferguson and Matt Labash, who were basically like that. They didn't write very often, but when they did, they were these big show-stopping pieces that really came to define the magazine. And it was a writer's magazine, and I did like the junior varsity version of that. I would write once a month or twice a month, like 7,000 or 8,000 word pieces, and it was great. I loved it. It was a different time. I couldn't do a daily newsletter outside of the environment we're in now, because the problem is, like, it is an extraordinary moment historically, and there is, there simply wasn't enough to write about every day before we began this authoritarian attempt. And it was better. I want to be clear, the world was better back then. And my hope is that someday I won't have to do this every day. Like, we'll return to something like normal politics.
Can I ask about your process, JVL?
Yeah.
Like, where do you, how does it unfold, like, in terms of when and how do you develop I'm going to write about this? I assume obviously you do a lot of reading as well. Like, how does your process work?
Reading is the most important part of writing. I will die on this hill that, when people ask me, like, I want to be a better writer, how do I do it? My answer is always read more, and read intentionally. Like, read like you're conducting a forensic investigation, right? I mean, this was I forget who told me this. I think it was Andy Ferguson once. Like, it's one thing to read Joan Didion for pleasure, just to enjoy it. But then you should go back and read it again where you're watching what she's doing, like as a craftsman, right? You're looking, oh, I see how she's done this structure, right? I see what she's doing here. And that is, I think, how you get better at writing. At least it's how I got better at writing. There's a certain amount of practicing too that you got to do it yourself. But my view is generally that it's much more valuable to study others and to pay attention so that you can be intentional about then what you do when it comes your turn at bat. My process is a hybrid. A lot of it is driven by events, but I would say twice a week, it's not event on average. Twice a week, it is, I have an idea for something that almost always comes during a fallow period. That's why fallow periods are so important. I keep like a running list of, when I'm going fallow, like on the weekends or if I
Learn
take a couple days
something
off.
about game theory when you're
Yeah,
not thinking of when you're not working something, right?
right. I keep a list of stories that I'm going to come to at some point. And the other important thing for me is, we're so awash in metrics. Like I know exactly how much revenue every piece I write brings in for the Bulwark. And that is blessing and curse because you understand what sort of thing works for people sometimes, not always. Um, and you want to be mindful of that, but you can't be a slave to it. And I try very hard to make sure that I carve out space for me to write about things that I care about. I did last week. My God, I spent basically 3 days working on a newsletter about Tesla's full self-driving capabilities. This thing absolutely died. Nobody read it. Nobody
I read
subscribed
it.
because
I
of it.
just
Thank
read it,
you.
actually. I was behind last week. I always read
Very
all of
kind
your
of
stuff
you.
except for the wrestling stuff. I can't do the wrestling.
But and I knew that piece was going to die, but I wanted to write it because I've followed full self-driving technology for many, many years. I'm interested in it, and I feel like for the longer term project of the Bulwark, it's important for me to be able to enjoy doing pieces like that, like once or twice a week or once every other week, even if they're not going to bring in subscribers, just to keep me from turning into a hack, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, I'll just do Orange Man bad.
It's super important, right? The Bulwark could grow faster by embracing more audience capture, right?
Yes.
There's a thing that we have a joke at Lawfare that the prototypical Lawfare headline to bring in maximum traffic is XXX Trump Trump girls 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 Trump XXX, and it can be about rule 41D of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. But if you have that headline, you're going to get traffic to it. And you guys you guys have a choice every day. Do you want to embrace what the readership most wants from you right now, or do you want to be yourselves? And there's a big overlap with that, but it's not the same. So let me give you an example of JVL. This is not an example for JVL, it's an example for the rest of you. When my old mentor slash friend slash editor Fred Hyatt died, JVL sent me a note that said, would love to have your thoughts on this, at whatever length. And this was not something that the audience was waiting to hear from the Bulwark, right? Like it could have, like the piece that the audience would have wanted from the Bulwark about Fred's death, if any, was Fred Hyatt died and it's Donald Trump's fault, which would have been untrue, among other things. But but that was just where here's who we are, here's what we do, and the audience can like it or not, but we're among other things, building this body of work. And I actually ended up spending a lot of time on that piece, and
it was an amazing piece.
And it was, if I do say so myself, better than anything that ran in the Washington Post on the same subject.
Absolutely it was. I want to, Anastasiia, this will not mean anything to you because you're not American and you're too young, even if you were American.
I feel that way maybe a third of the time I talk to them. So
Ben and Holly, this will hit for you guys because you guys remember Cheers. There's a saying in screenwriting.
Well, I was in Africa and my parents wouldn't let us watch that anyway.
Oh, really? There's a saying in screenwriting that the audience wants Sam and Diane to get together, but the audience needs Sam and Diane to never get together. And
this is critical.
This is something I think about a lot in terms of how the Bulwark is run day to day. that there may be things that the audience wants, but they only think they want that, right? And the minute, if you're too young to remember this, there was this on again, off again, will they, won't they dynamic between the two lead characters on the sitcom Cheers. And when they finally got Sam and Diane together, all of the energy left the show.
Right.
And it was
like when Big Bird
mistake.
and Snuffleupagus finally met.
Right.
When Snuffleupagus finally revealed himself to the rest of the cast, all the dramatic tension left Sesame Street. It's never been the same.
Yeah, and so I think that a lot. I think about the audience might think that they want something, but they don't really. And the truth is, I know better. So
the audience may think that this show should go on forever, but it is 9:00 and we start on time and we end on time on Dog Shirt TV. Jonathan V. Last, you are a great American, and it is great to see your face. Come back anytime. Now that you have this link, the rule is you can show up whenever you want. Anytime you click that link, you will be magicked onto screen. We are live every day, or every weekday from 8 to 9. Nastia, stay safe. Holly, don't do anything I wouldn't do. And we will see you all tomorrow.